Hi, welcome to America Uncovered. I'm your host, Chris Chappell. Breaking news from 2 months ago. U.S. President Donald Trump struck a major blow against the Iran nuclear deal, tearing down one more brick from Barack Obama's legacy, according to GQ. Yes, if you're looking for in-depth political analysis, look no further than a men's fashion magazine. What's that, Shelley? For in-depth political analysis, look no further than a teen girls fashion magazine? Wow. Teen Vogue covers the debt ceiling? I guess that explains why my 13-year-old cousin Tiffany spent Thanksgiving telling me about the pros and cons of tax reform. Shelley, has Teen Vogue covered the Iran nuclear deal? No? Okay, so America Uncovered might still have something to add. Besides, of course, 10 hot style tips guaranteed to get you to the chapel. In 2015, the Obama administration presented the world with the Iran nuclear deal. It was called the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, to make sure no one ever used its actual name. It was signed by the U.S., Iran, and 5 other nations, plus the European Union. Put simply, Iran agrees to give up 98% of its enriched uranium and stop pursuing nuclear weapons for 10 to 15 years. There are a bunch of specific things they have to do, and their nuclear program is heavily monitored by the International Atomic Energy Agency, the global nuclear watchdog. And in exchange, the U.S. and these other big countries agreed to unfreeze $150 billion of Iranian assets, plus gradually lift trade sanctions so Iran can do business with the West.
A nuclear-armed Iran is far more dangerous to Israel, to America, and to the world than an Iran that benefits from sanctions relief.
Now, who could be opposed to that? Oh, right. The man obsessed with undoing every single Obama policy. Well, let's hear what he had to say.
Rather than use its resources to improve Iranian lives, its oil profits go to fund Hezbollah and other terrorists that kill innocent Muslims and attack their peaceful Arab and Israeli neighbors. This wealth, which rightly belongs to Iran's people, also goes to shore up Bashar al-Assad's dictatorship, fuel Yemen's civil war, and undermine peace throughout the entire Middle East.
This is actually pretty similar to what opponents of the Iran nuclear deal said back in 2015. They were concerned that Iran had been a bad actor in the past, so how could we trust them now? Iran has been on the State Department's list of state sponsors of terrorism since 1984. And over the years, they did a lot of things that you would need to do if you were, let's say, secretly developing a nuclear weapons program. At the time, the Iran nuclear deal was really quite remarkable. When the Obama administration first rolled it out, it managed to finally unite Democrats and Republicans, who both hated it. That's like getting the Montagues and the Capulets to agree on something, which didn't happen until after Romeo and Juliet died. Why was the Iran nuclear deal so unpopular? I mean, at the time, the U.S. government estimated that Iran had enough nuclear material to make, 8 to 10 bombs. U.S. experts said that if Iran wanted to rush it, they were only 2 or 3 months away from making a nuclear weapon. This deal delays Iran's nuclear weapons program for at least 10 years. But unfortunately, there are a few flaws. A kind of large one is that Iran can still try to build nuclear weapons and just lie about it. And Iran has lied in the past. In 2003, Iran agreed to stop enriching uranium. But years later, the international community found out that, nope, they had been secretly enriching uranium the whole time. And, now they're pretty close to making a bomb. Which is why President Obama felt we needed the Iran nuclear deal in the first place, to stop Iran from doing the thing they promised they had stopped doing already but were lying about when they said they stopped doing it. It's like Jay-Z saying he's never going to cheat on you again after that last time he cheated on you. Don't fall for it, Beyonce. He's always going to find another Becky with the good hair. So one problem with the deal is that Iran could be a serial Jay-Z, just without the confessional rap albums admitting their guilt. But Chris, you ask, wouldn't the inspections catch Iran if they're lying? Right. The deal does allow the IAEA to inspect Iranian military facilities. But inspectors have to give 24 days notice beforehand. It's like your mom says she's going to inspect your bedroom 3 weeks from now. That's plenty of time to hide your embarrassing Fashion Dolls quarterly magazine, which you were just reading for the articles. They are so creepy. Another problem, the Iran deal also doesn't include restrictions on ballistic missile development. Those are the kind of missiles that could one day carry a nuclear bomb to, say, Israel, a country that Iran has threatened to wipe off the map. Fun fact, Iran has more ballistic missiles than any other country in the Middle East. There is a separate UN resolution signed in 2015 alongside the nuclear deal that does restrict Iran's development of ballistic missiles that could carry a nuclear bomb. How did that go? Well, last year Iran test-fired several ballistic missiles, including ones actually labeled "Israel must be wiped off the earth." But don't worry, it's okay because Iran's foreign minister swears that they don't have any missiles that can carry a nuclear bomb. And he was definitely not crossing his fingers behind his back. The deal also came with built-in sunset clauses. That means regardless of whether the Iranian regime changes behavior, restrictions on nuclear technology get lifted after a certain amount of time. Starting in January 2026, Iran is free to enrich uranium using advanced centrifuges. So yeah, there are one or two problems with the deal. But President Obama argued that that was the best deal we could have gotten.
So this deal is not just the best choice among alternatives. This is the strongest non-proliferation agreement ever negotiated.
Maybe it is the best possible deal. Or maybe it's just the best deal Obama felt he could negotiate. After all, getting China, Russia, Iran, Europe, and the US to agree on anything sounds, frankly, like a nightmare. And the deal has forced Iran to give up the vast majority of its already enriched uranium. The question is, can Trump make a better deal? Well, Trump is not actually making a better deal. He's just passing it off from the president's desk to Congress. See, the Iran nuclear deal isn't technically a treaty. If it was a treaty, Obama would have needed congressional approval. As PolitiFact says, the Obama administration said the Iran deal was neither a treaty nor an executive agreement. Instead, the State Department said in a letter that the deal reflects political commitments between the 7 nations involved. It's like, instead of saying, "This is a spoon," you say, "This is a device which can be used to eat soup." There is no spoon. Anyway, Congress was a little miffed that Obama bypassed them. So they passed the Iran Nuclear Agreement Review Act. It requires the president to recertify the nuclear deal every 90 days and confirm that the deal is vital to the national security interests of the United States. President Trump recertified the Iran nuclear deal twice, even though he's been a very vocal opponent of it. He's even called it the worst deal ever. Worst deal ever? Never getting a final episode of Pirates of Dark Water. That was the worst deal ever. How will I know if they ever finish finding the 13 treasures of rule? What's that, Shelley? There's Pirates of Dark Water fan fiction? So, after this episode, I'm going to need to go to an important meeting for the rest of the afternoon. Right, back to the Iran nuclear deal. This October, things changed.
I am announcing today that we cannot and will not make this certification.
That was the major blow to the deal. But it doesn't mean the deal is broken and that the U.S. will suddenly slap those sanctions back on Iran and Iran will restart its nuclear weapons program. Rather, it's that the issue gets kicked back to Congress, giving them a 60-day window to reimpose Iran's sanctions suspended by the deal. Which really shows Trump's ignorance of the U.S. political system. He keeps expecting Congress to do something. Well, Trump wants Congress to pass amendments to the U.S. law I mentioned earlier, the Iran Nuclear Agreement Review Act. Right now, Congress has to vote on whether to reimpose U.S. sanctions. Instead, these amendments would automatically trigger U.S. sanctions against Iran if it violated certain parts of the nuclear deal. So like I said, Congress had 60 days after Trump decertified the nuclear deal to vote to reimpose sanctions on Iran. And they did nothing. So, what are the consequences? Well, nothing. Congress didn't impose sanctions, so the deal is still valid. As it is, the biggest flaw with the Iran nuclear deal is that the penalty for Iran violating any part of the deal is that the entire deal gets canceled, with all the previous sanctions slapped back on. And Iran would be free to pursue nukes openly, in secret, again. So if Iran makes a small violation, the world has a choice. Completely blow up the deal, or let it slide. And according to the Trump administration, Iran's leaders are counting on this.
They are counting on the world brushing off relatively minor infractions, or even relatively major ones. They are counting on the United States and the other parties to the agreement being so invested in its success that they overlook Iranian cheating.
So, has Iran actually been doing that? Yep. For the third time, Iran has exceeded the limit for heavy water, something necessary for producing plutonium. But at the same time, the IAEA has verified that Iran has dismantled thousands of centrifuges. Those devices can make weapons-grade uranium. So, maybe we'll let the repeated heavy water violations slide, since the only other option is to blow up the deal. Another major problem is North Korea. Iran has been paying North Korea for military tech for decades. In 2003, the number of North Korean weapons experts in Iran is now so large, one paper reported North Koreans have a seaside community in Iran of their own, which is probably the sweetest gig any North Korean can get. So would North Korea be willing to sell nuclear weapons to Iran? Well, the director of the CIA said it is fair to say that as North Korea improves its capabilities, it could be willing to share that knowledge and technology if approached by potential customers, namely Iran. So it's possible that Iran's nuclear program never stopped, it just moved to North Korea. However, as for the specifics of the nuclear deal itself, like limitations on enriching uranium, Iran is still in technical compliance. And since Iran is still in technical compliance, is it worth the risks of the nuclear deal falling apart? Would international sanctions really be enough to keep a country from developing nuclear weapons? I don't know. Let's ask Kim Jong-un. And America's European allies don't seem too keen on ending the deal either. It is a pain to completely scrap a deal that took 2+ years to negotiate and which many see as an important, if flawed, step towards nuclear non-proliferation. Plus, a lot of multinational companies profit from being able to trade again with Iran. And some analysts are concerned that if the U.S. backs out of the deal, it could hurt the U.S.'s credibility. Then, of course, there's the ultimate fear: military conflict. If Iran starts up a nuclear program again, could that result in more good old-fashioned preemptive strikes in the Middle East? But don't worry, preemptive strikes in the Middle East have never once gone wrong. So what happens next? In mid-January, the Trump administration has to decide whether to certify the nuclear deal again, and whether to issue a waiver that keeps U.S. sanctions from coming back. If Trump doesn't do those things, then this whole process starts again. The State Department has said that it's not interested in blowing up the deal, but in fixing its flaws. So far, it's unclear how that's going to happen. So what do you think about President Trump's decision not to recertify the Iran nuclear deal and force the issue to Congress? Leave your comments below. Once again, I'm your host, Chris Chappell. Thanks for watching this episode of America Uncovered.